You know, as you consider us within our individual calling, leveraging it for the mission, there's also some other common threads of interest that relate to all of our calling. One of those is leadership. You know, all of us are called to lead. Now, you may be thinking, hey, wait a minute, I don't envision myself as being on a platform or having a big title, but that's not what leadership is. Leadership is not defined by a platform or title. Leadership is simply influencing others, leveraging our calling, leveraging our lives to influence others in a way that propels them towards God's calling on their lives and ultimately what His will is for them. As you think about leadership, whether that's with a formal capacity of title and role and out front responsibilities, or whether that's behind the scenes, impacting others and investing in others, I want you to think about the model of leadership that we should follow. As those who are called and given our lives to devoting ourselves to following the call of Christ, we must model leadership in the same way that He modeled it. And Jesus said that He didn't come to be served, but to serve and give His life as a ransom for many. So here's the greatest leader in all of human history, and yet He led through the model of a servant. Well, what does that look like for you and me as we pursue our calling? Well, I can't really think of a better person to speak to this issue as it relates to our calling than Dr. Kevin Ezell. Dr. Ezell has served as the president of the North American Mission Board since September of 2010. Prior to that, he pastored multiple churches in multiple states. And so he's got a lot of experience of what it looks like to be a leader. In his current role, he really provides the strategic vision and direction and leadership for Southern Baptist churches, helping to send the hope of the gospel throughout North America. And as he models that leadership, everyone who knows him would tell you he truly is the epitome of what it means to be a servant leader. So as you listen to what's involved in servant leadership and how to leverage that as part of your calling, I know you'll be blessed by what Dr. Ezell has to share with us today. So let's check it out.
I'm Kevin Ezell, President of the North American Mission Board, and what an honor it is for me to be able to share with you today in regards to your calling and specifically about servant leadership. You know, it's real easy as we look in the Scripture, see the very best example of a servant leadership in the Bible is Jesus. Jesus was always leading, but at the same time He was leading, He was lifting others up and developing other leaders. That's why He told the disciples, look, you're going to do some even greater things when I'm gone, because He was investing in them so they could invest in others. It was all about multiplication. Servant leadership, fundamentally, you have to get to the point where it's not about you. When someone wants to lead and build their own platform, you can see it real easy when everything is focused on them and building them and their ambition and their goals. A big part of servant leadership is helping the people around you understand what the goals are and then helping them reach those goals. And that way your focus is, yes, you have goals, but your primary focus is on building up and serving those who are going to get you to that particular goal. And it's all about a sense of focus. And to me, it's really hard to be a servant leader if you don't have a sense of relationship, a desire to. It's hard to fake it. To be a servant leader. You got to genuinely love your people. Remember when I was a pastor, I was trying to teach our people and teach my staff to be servant leaders. And so I gave them a little test in one of our meetings. I said, look, here's blanks, and I put down all the staff people there. I want you to put down their spouse's name, and I also want you to put down their children's names. So we had our music minister, his name was there. And then our staff was to fill in his wife's name and his 3 kids. And my point was, as they went through there, many of them were stumped and they didn't know all the kids' names with people they had worked with for 4 and 5 years. And then really, if you go down to even their particular areas and ask, okay, who is it you're leading in the music area? Now, who are their spouses and their kids? And it's all about genuinely loving people and having a genuine concern for people, the people around you. You could multiply yourself far greater if you invest in leaders around you. And that's what it simply means. Be a servant leader as you lead, but you're doing it as you're serving others. And here's how the multiplication goes. You know, if you have a leader here who invests in several other leaders in their particular areas, and you spend your time serving these leaders, then they too can hopefully imitate that or model that as they expand their particular leaders. I didn't draw that very well. And the multiplication begins to expand. I mean, you can see that in every particular profession where guys focus on, you talk about a coaching tree, if you will. I think one of the best or the most gratifying things is to see people you invest in do things far greater than you could ever do yourself. And I think a big part of servant leadership, too, is surrounding yourself with the type of people, one, that you genuinely love, and that are not all like yourself. You're never going to be able to lead effectively if you surround yourself with people who look just like you and who have your same giftings. The very best thing you can do is to surround yourself with people with different giftings, and you have a kind of a 360 perspective of making sure that the things that you do well, you don't need to necessarily find someone who mirrors that. Because I want to spend 80% of my time doing what I do well. And where some guys get derailed or distracted is they start to spend the majority of their time on things they don't do that well and they're not that gifted in, and they become less productive and less efficient. The most important thing you can do is to understand who you are, or as my wife often tells our kids, you do you. All right? You be you to the very best you can, and in a sense, stay in your lane where your giftings are, understand what your giftings aren't, and then help fill those voids around you when you have the opportunity to bring about leaders around yourself. And so you've heard it said before, I've read it in so many different books, you know, A leaders surround themselves with A leaders. B leaders surround themselves with C leaders, so they feel like that they're the one that is the grand poobah in the room, you know. And you just need to ask yourself some real simple things. Is there anything that's too simple or beneath you? We used to do something. We interviewed staff at our church. Even special, we interviewed interns. And for our church, my church I pastored in Louisville at Highview. And Jimmy Scroggins our student minister at the time, had about 30 or 40 interns. And we would interview them and go through different processes. But we often would even leave a piece of paper on the floor as we go into that interview just to see if the student would stop and pick it up or if he'd just step over it. And that tells you a lot about somebody if they think, that's for somebody else. You know, they're above that. And it's all about serving, period. And you want your whole staff to emulate that, if you will. It's much like a horse trainer. I'm from Kentucky, where we like basketball. And of course, they do a lot of horse racing there. And many of you perhaps have heard of Secretariat, Triple Crown winner. You heard of Secretariat, but very few people can typically name who the trainer is. Why? Because the trainer's been all of his time investing in that horse so the horse could run the race. And to me, it's really not that important that people know who I am. And people often apologize, saying, hey, this is Kevin, he's the president of the North American Mission Board. I'm sorry, I should have known that. It's like, really, not necessarily. My hope is that you know about evangelism, about sin network and sin relief, and it's more important about the mission. And that's all a part. That's what Jesus did, is he invested in the disciples. Now, what you have to remember when you do servant leadership, is the best way to lead, but it's not infallible. Like there are going to be times where you invest in people and it just doesn't work out. Jesus could tell you about that. There's a guy named Judas that didn't work out so well. I look back now, and one of the blessings I have is often to look back and think of people who invested in me. You know, it's amazing in your journey how some things seem so small at the time, but make such a huge difference. I remember guys like, there's a guy named Larry York who hired me my very first church job. And I was assistant minister of recreation at First Baptist Paducah. And I was to clean skates and check equipment out, ping pong paddles out at the rec center and those type of things. But Larry invested in me and gave me an opportunity. And I remember the day he said, hey, I want you to go out and lay out the cones for the soccer game. And you take the paint. I got to line the field, you know. And he just gradually gave me opportunities to do things that kind of expanded. And then I got to actually lead some things at a youth camp. And he just intentionally gave me opportunities and served me, but I knew, too, he had my back and he loved me. So I think guys like that, a guy like a Larry Gilmore is a pastor in Tennessee who gave me a chance when nobody else did. And throughout my entire life has served me. There's a guy named Bob Russell who pastors one of the largest churches in North America in Louisville, Kentucky. He's not Southern Baptist, and I am, obviously. And he met with me once a month for over 10 years. And what I love about Bob is he's probably one of the very best examples of a servant leader. He's just one of the godliest leaders I know, and especially a servant leader. Is he met with me at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning once a month for 10 years. We met at a hotel restaurant. He said we did that because nobody else in the town would be there. It'd all be people outside of town that wouldn't really know us. And we would just spend time just talking. And you know what? We didn't necessarily just start talking about church or how to grow a church or how to do certain things. I mean, we started about, hey, how's things at home? How's your family? And are you doing anything fun? You played golf lately? He was just a friend to me. And he really served, and still to this day is an encourager. So I just want to encourage you. Many of you are very gifted. God's given you abilities and opportunities that perhaps you never dreamed of. And just be constantly reminded of that and hold it all loosely. Remember, God gave you everything you have, even the breath that you breathe. He gave it all to you. None of that is your doing. Now, what you do with what He gave you, then that's your responsibility. I just want to encourage you to understand every one of those opportunities and all of those gifts, they came from Him. And the very best thing you could do is to multiply those by investing in the people around you. When I go to look for staff, I'm not looking for people who could serve me or serve our church. I'm looking at people that actually could lead in their areas. And it's amazing how invigorating that is to people when you lateral the ball to them and actually let them run. And you can celebrate as they score a touchdown. And you can tell you're really not a servant leader if someone else is getting credit and you have a sense of insecurity about it or frustration or why are they getting the credit. It's just like watching your kids do something and you're so proud of them because they scored that goal, or so proud of them that they did their very best on a test. You know, you just so thankful that they succeeded. We've got to get in our mind the importance of celebrating with others in a genuine way. That's when you know you have some real friends and some people are going to invest in you in the right ways, when they can celebrate your victories. I've been at the North American Mission Board about 10 years now. And 10 years ago, we started with a set of core values. And what I was trying to do is to instill a sense of servant leadership in all of our people, that they had a sense of focus of what we were about to do. And we were trying to completely change that to where our focus was to serve pastors. And there are over 47,000 pastors in the SBC. And we want NAM to be a servant leader, if you will, to come alongside a servant partner to them and help them be all they can be. Our job is to lift pastors up. So we had a set of core values. The first one was to do whatever it takes. And again, part of being a servant leader is to do absolutely whatever it takes. It's not like, okay, I've got my menu of things here. I've got my 4 things and you're going to learn these. You know, being a servant leader is helping take the time to identify what someone needs. And some learn different than others, and some are motivated different than others. But you just do whatever it takes to get it done. If you genuinely love someone and want to serve them, you find out what their need is, and then you try to meet it. It's not like, I have the answer. What's the question? You want to see what the need is and then adjust. And so you do whatever it takes. I just want to encourage you. One core value for your life is simply to do whatever it takes. Not just to tell someone, but to lead them there and help them accomplish that. So whatever it takes is our first core value. The second is to do more with less. A part of being a servant leader is not being so confined to necessarily a budget or a predefined, amount or something. You have to be led by an overall calling and sense of purpose and vision to do more with less. And our purpose for that is, look, money, we do not follow money. It's not how much money I got and what can I do. Not at all. If you're going to be a servant leader, it's like, okay, what is it we need to accomplish? And then, okay, let's set it and do whatever it takes to get there. And then we will find the resources to pull that off, even if we have to be creative. Apollo 13 had in the movie, there's a great part where they bring all the stuff and they dump it on the table and it says, all right, failure is not an option. I'm saying, look, we're limited by what we have, but failure is not an option. We got to do whatever it takes to make this, to get those guys home. Doing whatever it takes is important, but doing more with less. Don't be defined or confined by the amount of money or resources that you have. Be focused on what you need to do and serve others in order to get there. All right? So whatever it takes, do more with less. And then to respect our partners. Now, we teach that at NAM because we don't want anyone to say negative thing about any of our partners. It's just like anything else. Any relationship, you're going to have challenges along the way. And man, we want to respect our partners and do the very best we can to serve our partners and not talk negatively in any certain way. So as to be I think a servant leader, you have to be, one, a sense of being positive. That means you can't address things, but you need to have a sense of making sure to avoid any digs or purposely torpedoes at someone. That's not going to help you lead in any way. And you just don't want to set that type of environment for your people. I don't want guys taking pot shots from here and there, and then eventually you just have a war going on with all these torpedoes flying everywhere. So to respect your partners or respect your colleagues and the people around you. And then our fourth one is to love our missionaries and chaplains. We simply try to remind our people of why we do what we do. Look, the mission has to be at the forefront. The mission moves on. Circumstances will come that may be challenging and you have to call audibles here and there, but the mission moves forward because we're to love our missionaries and chaplains because that's what helps us accomplish our ultimate purpose. We're here to lift them up. And it's easier to do that when you genuinely love them. And that's why we encourage them to pray for them and look for ways to express that love as we come alongside and provide resources and guidance to them. So again, it's so important to focus on lifting others up. It's not about you. It's all about them. At the end of the day, it's who you developed, who God used you to develop, and how far they go. That will just, all boats rise in a sense. God will bless you as you invest in others and focus on them and not yourself. It's not about you. It's more about what God can use you to do to invest in them.